gentlemen, and welcome to another scene set in the Chronicles of Darkness Vampire a Requiem for London. Tonight, we set the scene at Charlie's circus. Perhaps at this point it would be more accurate to call it a theatre or an auditorium of sorts. Where she has been assisting in keeping the Revenants of London sated and safe. In exchange, they provide her domain with some manner of protection, giving her the muscle and the raw backing and power to run our diocese without interference or questioning from the other bishops, despite her young age. Quite a while ago, the bishop made a deal with the Revenants, and part of that deal was that their nominal leader would get to see their former leader again, and they would be able to talk. Tonight is that night. Charlie, about an hour after you have awoken from the day sleep, you received a message from Stanford. It says that he can and will be bringing Jade Lady to your theatre tonight. If that's acceptable to you.
It is acceptable. She's gonna have a couple of her sneakier remnants basically go to the edge of the territory and functionally wait for him to be sighted and just follow and make sure either A, nobody fucks with him, or B, he doesn't do anything weird.
Do you have them rest on sort of just outside the theatre, or on the borders of the sort of neighbourhood around the theatre, or on the borders of Camden?
Like on the borders of Camden.
Okay. Alright.
So she wants to know as soon as Stanforth enters Camden and pretty much just his pathing, if it seems like he's with anyone, what kind of car he's driving, just basic information.
Entrances into Camden, particularly on the south side. You can cover some of them. They can cover some of them by by taking a point of elevation. They won't be able to cover all of them, but they'll be able to cover most of them. They'll be able to cover the main routes.
Yeah, it's to be assumed she knows vaguely the territory that he would most likely be coming from, right?
Yeah, the A40-200, the A4, the A40. Yeah, it's mainly the A42.
Yeah, so she knows, or if she can reasonably guess where he's coming from, she can put, people there.
Yeah. You know where Invictus Domain is? It's directly to your south, so assuming he's coming from Invictus Domain...
He has recently claimed Praxis.
He's recently claimed Praxis, it's true. likely he resides here, and he's claiming it on behalf of the Invictus. So it's likely he'll be coming from Invictus domain.
She'll have, like, basically 2 people on Invictus domain, 2 people on where he would be coming from if, like, he was coming from, like, the Carthians.
That would be... I don't think you really border Carthian
I mean, we
territory,
don't
but
border directly, but, like, he's got to come in somehow.
In that case, he'll be coming from the west. One second. But no, he'd be coming from the west side in that case. Probably through Westway in the A501, so...
Yeah, so she'll send our dispatcher 2 teams out. Just, he's coming, keep an eye out for him.
Okay. You have enough Revenants to cover most entrances from a point of elevation, or at least most roads. You don't cover the north and the east, and you can't cover the entirety of Regent's Park, but that's about it. Outside of that, there are a few blind spots. About 15 minutes in. One of your Revenants states they've spotted a black Rolls Royce heading from the south side. They couldn't see clearly who was in it, but they did sense multiple predatory auras. They couldn't really sense how many either. The car was moving at a relatively high speed, and they don't have a very good angle on it. But they can sense kindred inside.
Charlie has, like, made up, like, she has kind of gotten into hosting mode and has, like, she hasn't put any, like, tea or food around or anything, but basically she's, like, taken one of the parlors in the circus and, like, you know, made it nice, flipped the pillows, put out some decorations. Just preparing for company. You know, probably get, like, a nice vanilla candle in there. Wait, no, not a candle. Not a candle. One of those, like, plug-in wax melters. Shit.
CB contact Hickory.
Yeah. He lives on site. She would have told him when... Because I'm assuming the Revenants are keeping in contact as, like, this car is arriving and going through the territory, so she would have told him, hey, like, this car's been sighted. We can assume it's, you know, our people. And she would make sure he is dressed. He is at least clean. Like, this would have very been one of these, okay, like, Stanforth is coming tomorrow, get your clothes in the washer, you're not washing your clothes, strip down, I will fucking wash them, I will rip them off you if I have to, you are going to look clean.
Most of the Revenants have come to look a bit more presentable since they've been staying with you and others. Not all of them stay within the theatre. It's not safe for them, not without immediate sustenance. You have come to realise, though, they found some very creative ways to hold off their hunger. It's quite bizarre. Every time they sleep with a bloodied slice of bread inside their mouth or on their chest. It's strange, but they do not wake up in a frenzied state. You've never seen something like it before. It's very odd.
Yeah!
It seems to work.
I mean, if it works, it works.
They still wake up hungry and prone to frenzy and anger and all the things you don't want to see in a kindred when they wake up, but they're at least not immediately dangerous. Most of them in control enough of themselves to not immediately attempt to feed on you or themselves when they wake up. But it's still difficult. Eventually, we'll get a text from Stanford. It says, plain and simple, we're outside the front entrance. Your Revenant fellows have been keeping you posted.
She won't respond to this.
So you know that before he takes you.
Yeah, so basically her Revenants tell her, hey, he's here. And I guess as, like, she's texting, she, like, opens the door. With, like, a very welcoming, warm smile.
Yeah. I assume they're like fancy glass doors or something.
Mm-hmm.
So he is with somebody. That is, he brings with him the Jade Lady, but he's with somebody else as well. Who I shall put on the screen for you. I shall link you because these are the three people that see. Jason himself, and then next is this man. Hardy looking man in his late 40s to early 50s. Very receding hairline and a relatively thin beard, goatee, sharply dressed.
Predatory aura.
Yep, definitely a vampire.
Okay.
No doubt about it. It doesn't look familiar to you. You've never seen it before. But he stands with Stanford. And is slightly taller than him. The man is quite tall. And, relatively stocky.
Mm-hmm. So as these people kind of come out of the car, she's like at the door with it open. And she says, well, it's just so good to see all y'all. You should have told me you were bringing a friend.
This is a close associate of mine. Wish to make introductions. And I'll just step forward and with his hand he will just sort of extend it. My name is Patrick Berg. Pleasure.
It is a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Berg. She'll shake the hand and say, Charlie Barnett. I suppose I should welcome you to my establishment here.
Pleasure is all mine.
Well, come on in, everybody. You're gonna let the heat out.
Jason nods. And they'll walk in, all three of them. Lined up behind Dracian. With the beacons.
She'll lead them all in and then like pretty much lead them directly to like that little parlor that she set up.
Jason attempts to make some small talk. Margaret doesn't say much, and Mr. Berg appears to be a man with relatively few words, though polite.
She'll engage in small talk.
Jason just I did their call.
Well, thank you kindly. I've been doing a little bit of rebranding in the past couple weeks.
I can tell. I thought you intended to leave the business. It's refreshing to see that you hadn't. This domain lacks much in the ways of the arts.
She kind of like waves her hand a little and says, oh, well, you know how things change in artists these days. We can be just so finicky with our emotions and all. And I guess I just decided to come back and try to make it a little bit better.
But don't call yourself fickle or I'll have to call you a liar. You strike me as someone holding a very specific set of convictions. Convictions I can appreciate.
Well, I hope Sanctified would hold convictions. Though, speaking of convictions, she'll kind of turn to Stamforth. I've heard that yours may have changed a little.
My convictions?
At least how you're expressing them.
I suppose you are right. I suppose they have changed. He does not hide the sense of dejection in his voice.
Charlie kind of looks at him and tilts her head to the side and then just like puts a hand on his shoulder and says, well, as long as you're polite, you are always welcome to come here if you want to talk.
He will, when you go to put your hand on his shoulder, he'll just place a hand up as if to say no, but it's appreciated, but I shall do what I must.
That's all any of us are doing. We do what we have to.
Hard times make hard people.
Hard times make every person make hard choices. Well, I think that we should go ahead and get this started. Please, please, take your seats. Anywhere's fine. Well, I'd offer to get you something, but not really much I can offer you right now.
That is quite alright. I just appreciate being here.
And I appreciate having you. It has been so long since I've had the opportunity to host properly.
Hopefully we'll have the opportunity to do so again once this conflict is over.
We'll see where the cards fall. At the end of the day, you know, I'm confident me and my own are gonna make it out of this in at least one piece.
One can only hope.
Well, I've already done so much to make sure that happens. It'd be a bit of a shame if it didn't.
Have faith that it was enough. He will take a seat somewhere in the parlor if you allow it.
Yeah.
Awesome, well. Morgan head on up to you and say, I appreciate you doing this.
Consider it kindness for kindness, dear.
She no longer has the yellow tint in her eyes. Not sure you ever... I think you... Yes, you did see the yellow tint in her eyes. It was there when she had it. It's no longer present.
Does she have, like, a different aura than she did before? Like...
No, but you doubt even if you had that sort of sense, that sort of sixth sense, you're not sure I'd be able to tell whether or not one of the birds had been in or out of her.
Oh, no, I'm referring to, is she still a revenant or is she fully embraced?
That is not clear. Revenant beasts and kindred beasts are all beasts at the end of the night. vampires. Sometimes beasts exude a specific part of themselves. Sometimes they come across as particularly powerful, but this is inconsistent and varies wildly from kindred to kindred. So it's not something that is particularly... something that is documented, but not a particularly reliable source of measuring a kindred, shall we say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I gotcha.
So, let me take a seat. And after a short while, Hickory will come on out. He is plainly dressed, very plainly dressed. He can't, as much as, he doesn't really try to present himself as anything more than he is. He comes across as paranoid, tense, and almost threatening. His face is very straight and stiff. And the way he looks at anybody in the room, it's very much the look of someone who would be ready to fly off the handle and start throwing hands at any moment. But he'll slowly walk up to all of you. And he'll look at each other and he'll say, "Kept your end of the bargain."
I tend to be a woman of my word. Did you think I wouldn't?
I didn't.
I appreciate your honesty. Now why don't you come over here and take a seat, darling?
He'll head on over. You notice he does not look directly at either of the kindred in question. But of course, as a kindred of finer education, no, him avoiding their gaze is no defense.
Mm-hmm.
They see his eyes, he's a target.
Mm-hmm.
He does look directly at Margot. It's the only time where his face softens ever so slightly. But only barely.
She just kind of smiles at them and will, like, clap her hands together lightly and say, "Oh, I do hope they have been treating you well wherever they've been keeping you."
They have Stanford ensured a safe escort from Movement's domain. A lot has happened. I had to be kept isolated for a couple of months due to the curse inflicted upon me, and to incriminate me from what I was told. But it doesn't appear to be lasting.
Oh, well, I suppose you have been away for a little bit then, so I don't know if they've told you any of the recent news.
Stanford's kept me updated. On the shard. A lot of my kind were not present. Apparently they had been burnt to death. Out of furnace.
She nods a little sadly, and says, "Unfortunately, it seems a large majority of this city is not as willing to help you out as Mr. Stanforth here is. Sorry, I mean no disrespect. Is Mr. still an appropriate title for you, or would you prefer something else?"
I hear Prince is the operative word these days.
Well, congratulations, Prince. I suppose if we're being formal, you may call me Bishop.
Very well, Bishop. Although Graves still contests the praxis from the shadows, of course, as this kind does. His wing of my sect is not entirely dead and buried, I'm afraid.
Well, Prince, if I may, the loudest individuals, the ones with the most to say, often surround themselves with people who can do their bidding for them, because for the most part, despite how much they run their mouth, they really aren't that interested in doing anything themselves. And most of those people doing the dirty work, frankly, don't have much better to do. You get rid of the mouthpiece, it'll solve a lot of your problems.
One of them has been dealt with already. I'm not sure if you've heard of Miss Gauntlet before.
I don't believe I have.
She ran much
Admit it. Oh, sorry, you go.
She ran a private military contractor that made up much of the prince's muscle. Venture.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised if I came into contact with her little group before. There was that attack all those months ago.
Would be bad people, most likely.
Well, I can safely say they were rather effective at what they did.
They are, but they needed to be dealt with, and Gauntlet was an obstacle.
She kind of shrugs and says, "Well, if you would like to sit down and talk about your political situation, I'm more than open to that. I feel like you and I have a lot to talk about anyway."
We do. While certain parties within my sect still wish to engage yours in conflicts, myself and the rest of House Valerius have no interest. And in fact, would be quite happy to assist in dealing with that problem that your sect has with our opposition.
She considers this for a moment and will eventually kind of like run a hand through her hair and say, I must admit that the primary force providing antagonism between you and us is no longer as vocal. So a cease to this conflict seems only natural.
House Valerius has other focuses at this point in time. I'm not sure if you're aware of the situation amongst the Circle of the Crow.
The Crone and the Sanctified are currently on relatively neutral terms.
That's interesting. I'd heard you were on quite violent terms.
Well, a lot has changed, hasn't it?
Perhaps. They are undergoing their own schism. Funny that.
It seems like we're all having our problems we don't want nobody to know about.
Perhaps this was just the natural turning points in the city's history. It seems curious to me that so many among us would divide upon the declaration of war. Usually it does the opposite, it galvanizes, it does not divide.
Yeah, and the loudest players are taking a step back or not in the game anymore. This war is, and I'm sure you'll forgive me for being a little blunt here with you, this war is frankly just a petty fight between individuals that most of us have very little stake in, and the fact that it got blown out of proportion really meant most were reacting to protect their own kind and their own interests. So once the stakes were lowered, well, we all looked internally. It might galvanize you for the time being, but when the dust settles and you realize how broken everything is, well, you gotta start fixing it.
Not half correct. He states that very bluntly.
Then please enlighten me if you wouldn't mind.
True reason, violence. It's coming down. Why the masquerade is no longer as frayed as it was before. It's because the war's already over. Most wars are fought for power, over selfish reasons. You may not believe me when I say this was not one of those wars.
She kind of like gives a little bit of a look, like she furrows her eyebrows and says, most wars are fought over petty differences in ideals or greed or hot tempers. I will give you that. Most of those reasons are selfish. As far as I've been made aware of, this was more of a war of pride, if you will. And I do agree that this war is already over, and it's ended exactly the way I've expected it to. Well, maybe not exactly, but for the most part, the way I anticipated.
There are a few parties interested in continuing this war. There's only one I can think of. You both know who that is.
That's the thing about a forest fire. It'll keep burning and burning until somebody puts it out.
The police crackdown was my doing. The former prince was losing his hold over the masquerade. Gauntlet's little soldiers beginning to cause questions to get asked. Medical services were being overrun. There were too many kindred on the streets. We were already overpopulated before this war started.
And if overpopulation's one of your concerns, then I suppose what happens once this is ended? Are you going to go around mowing the population yourself?
That would be me. Berg speaks up for the first time in about 30 minutes.
And is this why you wanted to make an introduction, darling? She kind of like leans forward and like rests her head on her hands and on her elbows.
I was told you make things happen.
She very slowly grins. Well, I suppose I have planned quite a few events in my time.
Berg shall not be the sheriff of the north side of London. He shall rather be the sheriff of the inner city. If there are no kindred within the domain that show themselves worthy of a particular quarter of a domain, then it is to Berg that the responsibility lies. I already know who the sheriff of the north of London shall be, and as such the sheriff of Camden, by extension. I think you'll be pleased with my choice.
I would love to know who this sheriff is. Go ahead and get the introductions going. I'd hate for there to be an awkward situation where one of us is trying to exert control.
She is no Invictus. I trust her to police the sanctified well. I hear she's an inquisitor. Sheriff Thane. Former sheriff of the east side. But I have gone somewhat off rails.
I should be sure to congratulate the sheriff upon her appointment. Though that would be quite a little bit of fun between our two groups, wouldn't it? A little get together, congratulate everybody, help get rid of some of the bad blood.
As this war comes to close, there will be an Elysium. Some post-war matters will need to be tended to.
Unfortunately, the Sanctified aren't quite allowed at Elysium right now, are we?
Gives you a very flat look.
She looks like she's looking at him with like an even expression of like, yeah, no, we're not allowed.
Alara Shade sits firmly within the camp of graves. Needless to say, she'll need to be removed. She is one of the prince's last remaining mouthpieces.
And once you guys take care of that, I will be sure to have my shining face there. But until then, I'm sure you understand that I'm not looking to rock the boat or cause any disrespect with my presence. We've had enough of that going on in this family. Wouldn't you agree?
This brings me to my next point. Invictus would be willing to make peace with the Sanctified. However, the Invictus needs a bit of house cleaning in order for that to happen. This ties our hands somewhat when it comes to hastening the end of this conflict. I'll be blunt. I would see Verve dead as soon as possible to restore some stability to this domain. But I can't do that as long as I'm fighting my own sect.
Then why not inform somebody else of it? I'm gonna be blunt with you. The Sanctified, we're not gonna get involved in this Carthian Invictus fight for the time being. We already are trying to wrap up our own conflicts. But the Ordo have quite a bit of bad blood with the Carthians right now, don't they?
Well, unfortunate for you, that grave seems to disagree. Regardless of your stance, the Sanctified took a stand with the movement.
Joshua took a stand for the movement, and Joshua just happened to be loud enough that most people assumed it was all of us.
See you tomorrow. Ultimately, at Elysium, the former bishop spoke for the movement. What he has done has not been rescinded by the Sanctified. You have made peace with the Ordo, you have not made peace with us. We are granting you that opportunity.
She nods, and she's got like Joshua's cannon kind of like laid across her lap, and she's kind of like playing with it a little, like just idly. Well, provided permission, I would be happy to make a statement, especially as his childer.
He was a mouthpiece.
Oh, I'm fully aware.
The Archbishop.
Well, I suppose if you want to talk to the Archbishop, then you're more than welcome to.
It's the Sanctified deal with the issue that is Shade, in that sense. The Invictus will no longer trouble you.
So let me get this straight for my own understanding, because I'd hate to take your marching orders and get them twisted. I really would. You would like us, the Sanctified, to go and clean up this mess with Shade, right? And upon doing that, we'll have functionally a better working relationship.
Yes.
I will bring it to the others, but I can't make a decision for my entire set, now can I?
No. Unless you bring it before the Synod and the Archbishop. But I will make this clear. I'll do whatever it takes to bring stability to this domain.
Then you and I are in agreement on that.
Good. I'm sure Charlie's aware that that was a very implicit threat.
Mm-hmm. She's just smiling. Like, just that very polite, like, hostess smile, I think is the best way to describe it.
Give me a wits empathy roll if you like to understand for his mentality right now.
Sure. It's...
I'll give you +2 bonus dice because you've met him before.
I can't do, so it's empathy +2, so that's 3, 4. 1.
That's enough. He's certainly more decisive than he was before, but Stanford's even before wouldn't make a threat like that, and he wouldn't make a decision this ruthless. But
She just looks at him with, like, you know, once again, that small smile is like, seems like we've both gotten harder since the last time we saw each other.
sometimes there's only one way to deal with monsters.
And one day, somebody younger and scrappier and more idealistic than either of us is going to come take care of us when we become monsters, hitting that right.
If you want, you can ask my sire that question.
Oh, I'm sure me and your sire don't have too much to talk about. Though I do understand living with the expectations of one like that.
Expectations are not the issue. But it's neither here nor there. For the time being, the Invictus will cease all attacks on you until you and the Synod and your Archbishop can come to a decision. We will grant you that time. We'll do what we can. I cannot tell Graves and his wing of the party, so to speak, what to do. But we can keep them occupied.
And as far as Campton goes, consider yourself safe. Now, don't be coming in here trying to feed or anything. I don't have the people for that. And things are already hard enough as it is, especially with your new police lockdown, but you're welcome to come see a show.
Well, let me just say there's a reason why none of your revenants have been placed in solitary confinement and left to meet the sun.
I fully appreciate your support. And I assure you I am working on and getting them to a more respectable state.
There is a brief pause as you consider something. Speaking of revenants, well, I appreciate you looking after as many as you can. I hear there are many that have sworn to the surface.
Hickory here has done an excellent job of keeping the revenants we have located in Camden safe and satisfied.
Hickory. The lady speaks highly of you. Both of them do, so it seems. I have a proposal for you and your... I don't think you or I would consider it an organisation, but it is the closest thing I can equate it to. You are well aware of the threats that lie beneath the city and the enmity it has for me. If your group can find a way to it and aid us in destroying it.
Anything done, right?
Yeah, almost done. If you can aid us in destroying it. Look like our kind legitimacy of the never remaining primogen seat. He gestures to the Jade Lady. Well, of course, assisting. This is a threat to the domain and